on Barrick with my technology integrated lesson plan, the draft version. I'm evaluating it based on the Triple E evaluation rubric for lesson design. And we can get started. So, my technology integrated lesson plan involves students using technology to record sounds and then working creatively with those sounds to imagine different purposes for those sounds and using that to make a story. So it's a very creative project. This will be for a elementary music class. I designed it for fifth grade specifically, which you can see here in the content, fifth grade music education, and also the standards that I chose. So the grade five standards here. Question one from the Triple E evaluation rubric for lesson design. For engagement, does the technology tool help students focus on the learning goals with less distractions? So, the technology tools that I'm using include a sound recording device that they can then use to uh, handle the audio files and move them through. I think that if I used lav mics like I designed in this lesson, then that would enable the students to focus more than if they were to somehow use a smartphone. If they had them, I'm not exactly expecting fifth graders to have smartphones, but it could help them focus more where they have the captures those sounds so they can use what they have recorded. And then using Google Slides to create and design their story that they can present to the class. I think that the visuals will help the students focus, bring in a clearer picture, but maybe, um, of course, they're using these technology devices. They could get distracted because there's lots and lots to do, and there's lots of finicky stuff that can get in the way in making a presentation, especially for fifth graders, 10, 11-year-olds. So I would say somewhat for question one engagement. The question two regarding engagement, does the technology tool help motivate students to begin the learning process? I would say absolutely, because having these interesting devices, these handheld microphones, can help students really focus on the sounds they hear around them or the sounds that they are able to make themselves. And the Google Slides will help students get started right away because they don't have to uh, have some sort of alternate presentation where they have to draw. If they're worried about their drawing skills, draw out the story or write down the words of the story where they can get started right away. So I would say question two, engagement, absolutely. Question three for engagement, does the technology cause a shift in the behavior in the students where they move from passive to active social learners? I would say that it somewhat causes a shift in the behavior where they are creating sounds, and not just creating sounds. It would be hard for me to have an assignment where the students create sounds without the sounds being captured, because then I would have to be with every group or every student. If I let them split up, that would be really hard to achieve. It could be lost in the moment. So I think um, encouraging students to make their own, like explore with sound creation in lots of different ways, really creates active social learners. So I would say absolutely for that one. Question one enhancement, does a technology tool aid students in developing or demonstrating a more sophisticated understanding of the content? So I would say that the tools, the microphones, and the presentation, the Google Slides, and the photos that they are going to collect altogether, they do aid students in developing more sophisticated understanding of the content because if they record the sounds and they make the sounds that they want, they are able to really dig into the details and try to figure out what makes a sound a certain way or what makes a sound have a certain feeling. So I do believe that it's a more sophisticated understanding comes from that. Question two, enhancement. Does technology create scaffolds to make it easier to understand concepts or ideas? Being able to listen to the sounds over and over and over and over again, I think does make it easy to understand concepts or ideas or be able to classify sounds or put different ideas related to the sounds. I also think that part of this lesson plan being finding stock photos online in a safe way, in a safe guided way, does make it easier to deliver and develop concepts and ideas because the students are being creative, but they don't have to conjure up every single thing themselves. They can find images that fit with their imagination that they already had. So I would say absolutely for that one. Question three, enhancement. Does technology create paths for students to demonstrate their understanding in ways that they couldn't do with traditional tools? So the demonstration part of this lesson would involve students, and I can go through here, um, participating on sound collecting, describing their sounds, participating in designing a story, following safety guidelines for image research, uh, putting in effort during their story presentation, and effort explaining how they link the sounds they made with the images. So when they create that story, I think that technology itself does not necessarily create paths for students to better demonstrate. But then again, having those audio files come through, and if we can have those audio files that they recorded be played during the presentation, that would be a great way to enhance the demonstration of their understanding. So I would go with somewhat. It is not very strong enhancement for demonstration, but it is something that is would be a lot less possible without that technology. If they had a bunch of interesting sounds and they had to recreate them during a presentation, that would not make sense. Questions for extension. Does the technology create opportunities for students to learn outside of their typical school day? I designed this lesson plan being all in one, um, all in one day, all in one class session, or split over two class sessions where they work in groups. So maybe not creating opportunities for students to learn outside their typical school day, but perhaps I could change it to make students have opportunities to learn outside of their typical school day, including maybe taking the microphones home and collecting lots and lots of different sound files that they can then go through with their group and pick out their favorite, most interesting ones or describe them. Um, but I don't necessarily want the presentation or the story building being done from home outside of the typical school day because I do imagine it in groups, like creative groups together. So as far as right now, I have to say not at all for this outside of the typical school day extension. For the second extension question, Q2 extension, does technology create a bridge between school learning and their everyday life experiences? I would say absolutely, because we are connecting real life sounds to the education, to the school learning of what makes a sound have certain qualities and what makes a sound and how we describe sounds to each other. This communication is what we're focused on, and the repurposing of it with sounds that we create ourselves is a great bridge. And lastly, Q3 extension, does technology allow students to build skills that they can use in their everyday lives? Absolutely. Um, Even if the students will not everyday lives be managing audio files and trying to arrange them, I do believe that in everyday life, Students will have to do things like uh, find resources on the internet in a safe way, which I'm training them to do via finding stock photos in a safe way. And then also a very essential modern skill is being able to construct presentations. And so this is a quick intro into that where we have the students in Google Slides make putting those photos together and the audio files together so they can tell a story that they created themselves, which is of course just essential presentation and communication skills. So as a quick review, we have somewhat for engagement, absolutely for engagement, absolutely for engagement. Then enhancement, we have absolutely, absolutely, somewhat, and extension, we have not at all, absolutely, and absolutely. So the big thing to change would be opportunities for students to learn outside of their typical school day. And we have a 14 out of 18 points, which is in the green light zone. It is meeting all three components of the framework. So I think we're at a pretty good spot, but definitely spots where I could improve.